The National Youth Service has a debt sheet of 16.4 billion Kenya shillings and is working with a negative working capital of at least 550 million shillings. This clearly paints a picture of a national institution that is on the verge of collapse. Whenever we have a crisis in the country, the institution that supplies the manpower to assist in management of persons, movement of persons, and sometimes even in the management of handling security in terms of handling large crowds. For example, when we are having swearing in ceremonies, when we are having big sports events in our country, mostly the institution that supplies us the personnel trained and disciplined enough to regulate these crowds, to manage those events, is the National Youth Service. And majority of the professionals churned out of the National Youth Service are nothing short of the best. You look at the mechanical engineers, you look at the automotive engineers, you look at the other types of engineers who churn out of the National Youth Service. You look at the various professionals from procurement. I have a friend who works in a certain company, but she did procurement while under NYS training. They have one of the highest levels of discipline. They have one of the highest levels of respectful authority. And they know how to operate within rules and laws. And the fact that this institution is on the verge of collapse is such a sad situation, because this is an institution that every year there is allocation of billions of shillings to it. This is an institution that every financial year since its inception, loads and loads of cash injections are made into these institution to, one, improve its training program, also improve and actually support the training of these youths who are handled there. And it saddens us that an institution that we can rely on a time of crisis to supply us with the personnel required to manage a crisis situation is on the verge of collapse. How did we get here? How did we get here that an institution that receives billions of shillings from the government, which is from our taxes, is on the verge of collapse? And how did NYS become a playground for cartels? Why has the government allowed those who seek to destroy this nation through corruption to find NYS the best place to loot? Because NYS is one of those places where you can supply air and be paid. NYS is one of those places where you can supply items, be paid, take those items and go back with them home. NYS is that institution where it's like a free reign territory for corruption. And the government needs to come up with a policy that regulates the management of the National Youth Service. And the professionals who churn out of the youth service should be the first priority whenever it comes to employment in this country. Actually, in my own opinion, I think the best way to handle employment in terms of our Kenya Defense Forces, in terms of our police service, in terms of our National Intelligence Service, the National Youth Service is the best ground to hunt for the professionals we need to professionalize these services. Because you go out here and you find a person who was just in the lowest cadre of the educational rank are the people we are employing as police service. And it will be even easier, it will be even cheaper to recruit NYS trainees into the Kenya Police Service, because these are persons who have already undergone a paramilitary training for 6 months. You only now need to teach them how to handle guns. When it comes to the Kenya Defence Forces 9 months training program, it is even easier and cheaper and more economical and better and more prudent way of using of our resources when matters training come in of our Kenya Defence Forces, because this is a person who has undergone training for at least 6 months. This is a person who's been taught the values of nation building. This is a person who knows the importance of discipline. When you have such a person in the National Police Service, this is a person who will be more inclined to follow the rules and the lay down procedures of the law. This is a person who will be more inclined to respect the rights of an arrested person when they are carrying out their duties, because at the very beginning, at the very foundation of their training, they were trained to be loyal to country and to follow the rules and to follow the law and to follow the laid down procedures. Instead of walking around and just picking anybody and admitting them into this police service, which eventually has turned out to be a rogue institution, the NYS would be the best place to hunt for these persons who would be the best equipped to be employed in these services and our security forces. Plus, it limits us from overspending too much resources recruiting outside. But the government needs to come up with a way to revive the National Youth Service, needs to come up with a way in terms of procurement for the National Youth Service to stop all this corruption. Because majority of these deaths is money that has gone to people's pockets. This is unacceptable, and as a country, we cannot continue like this, ravaging our national institutions that are the pride of our nation. This must end. This must stop. That is my unfiltered insight.